We do have a quorum, and I'd like to call to order the August 5th meeting of the Town of Sunset Beach Planning Board. With that, let us recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you have a motion to approve the agenda as written, or does anyone have a change they'd like to request?
No? Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public comments? Do we have any public comments? If not, we'll move on to old business, the Southeastern Hazard Mitigation Plan. Ted, do you want to
Yes,
open?
Chair, thank you. Good morning. I have Nathan Slaughter here with the Hazard Mitigation Plan. He drove from Raleigh this morning, brought him in to answer any questions that the board might have, and I'll recognize him now.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Yeah, Chad called me and said, okay, I need you to come down and talk to my planning board. So I'm happy to be here. And he said you might have a few questions about the regional hazard mitigation plan, and hopefully I can address any of those that you might have. And if not, I'll get you an answer. So
First question I had was just in regard, I see reference to a town mitigation plan, a county mitigation plan, and a Southeastern North
Right.
Carolina mitigation plan.
right.
And going to our town's website, I see that the town did have a plan, which was adopted, I think, in July of 2011, I'm sorry,
Okay.
and
2011.
expired in 2016.
Right.
And then apparently we joined the Brunswick County plan. And what's before us now is
A regional plan.
regional plan.
Yeah.
Was Brunswick County joining the regional plan something relatively
Yeah,
recent?
and part of what brought that about is, these hazard mitigation plans are required by FEMA all across the country,
Mhm.
and every town has to have one. And North Carolina, probably 10 years ago, just started recognizing the efficiencies that they had when joining. First of all, they started at county level, getting all the municipalities to participate in a county plan, and then they found even more efficiencies in these regional plans.
Okay.
And there's probably 20 across the entire state of North Carolina. There's probably 25 regional plans that cover all the counties and all the municipalities within those counties. Just for efficiency's sake, the funding to do the plans is just better distributed at that level, and that's basically why they've done that. Yes, sir.
Different regions of the state have different problems to mitigate
Exactly.
as well. So
And honestly, a lot of times the regions that are working together are counties that are used to working together, in terms of, especially in terms of their hazards. So they just started lumping a bunch of them together, and that's kind of the approach that they've taken statewide now.
Right, so this one is basically Brunswick and New Hanover, right?
This one is
And
Brunswick,
Onslow?
Pender, Brunswick, New Hanover, and Onslow. So it's a large region.
So all of those counties have already adopted this plan?
All 4 of the counties have adopted the plan.
'Cause I couldn't find where Brunswick County did.
Yeah, they did adopt it. I went to their meeting.
That was recent?
About maybe 2 months ago. So yes, sir, they've adopted in every municipality except there's like two others that are still outstanding, but all of the rest of the municipalities in the entire region have adopted it.
Can I ask a question,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
for curiosity? I was looking at the local stats, and it says that property owners, this is in Sunset Beach, have 250 claims for $460,810. Is that for 1 year or for 5 years?
That is probably, I'd have to look at the particular stat, but it's probably a cumulative total. We pull the stats from the National Flood Insurance Program, so it may be a total of all the claims, but I could double check that if you.
And then today, and also the island and the town, the mainland are grouped together, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I think they're all covered under the same
Okay.
NFIP program number.
So by adopting this plan, then the town would not write their own plan like they did in 2011.
No,
So the town plan would become this plan. Like right now, there's a link on our website going to the 2011 plan and a Brunswick plan. So those would be replaced by
Right.
a link that goes to this plan if any citizen wants to see what our mitigation plan is. And inside this plan, the town will just have to update sort of their section. I see like in section 9 of your plan, there's like the tables from all the different jurisdictions saying, this is what we did, this is what we're going to do, this is...
exactly.
So so basically then the town will only be required to every 5 years update their section of the plan.
That's correct.
And then you would consolidate all that in one plan and it becomes everybody's plan.
That's correct. You would, and what the resolution says, I believe the resolution that that the council would sign, basically adopting the plan and giving their stamp of approval on it. It basically says we're adopting this plan, but we're only going to update and be responsible for those portions that are relevant to Sunset Beach.
Right.
And yes, I would recommend.
And I see we had some guy, Todd, doing some participation in this for a while, because I seen there was a Sunset Beach table with like 3 items on it.
Yeah.
So I would take it that we would be, Sunset Beach should be doing additional work on updating that section, right? If we adopt it, that means it looked pretty thin on what was done for Sunset Beach.
Well, technically, I believe how it's set up now is there is it's called the Mitigation Action Plan. I believe that's what you're referring to. There's a portion of that is specific to Sunset Beach, and that's the 4 or 5 actions you were talking about. But under all of the Brunswick County hazard mitigation actions, I believe there's like 50 of them. There's a bunch.
Right.
They also reference Sunset Beach. So you would be responsible for reviewing and implementing those 5 that are specific to Sunset Beach, but also whichever ones reference the town as well under the county.
Because we're already delinquent, right? We're supposed to be done like in
that's
April or what was it, July? I don't forget.
Right, and there's no penalty for that. I mean, FEMA does look at what they call the implementation status, which is that last column that says where are you with implementing this action, and they do require that every action have some sort of status in terms of where it is with implementation. But there's no penalty for not implementing an action. You can say we deferred this. You can delete actions, and I believe that's what happened on several of y'all's. They voted to delete some of the town's actions just because it's not technically feasible or we don't have the staff to do it. FEMA doesn't really care whether or not an action gets implemented, but they do want you to at least keep track of them and provide a status update.
But say that we decide to adopt this, or the council does, and then some action is taken. We submit like an update. That plan is updated all the time, or only 5 years from now. So what's in there now is in there for 5 years,
right?
Or like say next year, town decides to make some additional actions, it gets put in there, or you wait till 2026 and then it gets put in there.
Yeah, the complete overhaul of the plan is every 5 years. That's required by FEMA that they go through and update the plan across the board. But you are welcome to, implement actions, and ideally that's what you would be doing, trying to implement as many of those actions on an ongoing basis. And I believe there's a chapter of the plan called implementation status or plan maintenance or something like that lays out how you could go about doing that. And I believe it actually says, ideally you would try to update the plan every year, annually. But the complete larger effort of completely updating the plan is every 5 years.
I mean, because I guess to me the point is the actions. If there's no action taken, it's just a big binder of stuff that doesn't
and
do anything.
Honestly, most people they adopt the plan and then forget all about it for 5 years. The people that have the most success, in reducing their vulnerability and getting grant funding and actually implementing projects are the ones that actively try to implement those actions in the plan. And I would highly recommend that. I just know it's easier said than done.
I was a little distressed by our mitigation action plan because it was pretty inactive, you know, sounding on paper, and we don't even mention stormwater in our.
Right.
So I'd like to find a way.
Yeah, we don't even mention things
to
we're actually doing.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, we can at least set it out as a goal and then encourage, you know, or ask for an annual update on it, because, you know, otherwise, I mean, we could do things that would benefit our community if we
And you are
move
doing
on,
things
and I'd
that
like to see that.
probably aren't getting captured in the plan. Just one, because of the regional nature of it, it's hard to really drill down and get, you know, for me as a project manager to drill down and get those specific details from each town. It gets hard with these large regional plans. Yes, sir.
With the regional plan that we now have, that now exists, if you will, and we're playing into that program where we originally had our own plan, then it kind of morphed into a county plan, as has been described. Then it morphed now more recently into a regional plan with 4 counties. It seems like, and I went through it all, but it seems like even right now it's dated. A lot of the statistics, a lot of the input was back in April of 2019.
Sure.
Because that's when it was due to be updated. Back then, COVID was not, infectious diseases were not paramount like they are now.
Sure.
I agree with what has been stated here, that we need to do something in the town, and I know it probably falls on Chad, to be conscious of these things. We're in the middle, not just Sunset Beach, but a lot of communities are in the middle of massive expansions and development. And evacuation routes are key to mitigating public safety. And that's something that is overlooked in this plan. A question I have.
I think it was in the county.
A question I have is, under the capability assessment section, and that was very thick, and it goes through each town under education, under all kinds of different categories.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like Sunset Beach was lacking in participating in that section of the mitigation plan. And I'm surprised that didn't bring a negative focus on us by the people that were putting together the regional plan, the whole
reviewers,
plan.
yeah.
Now, we're not the only ones, but
Right.
some towns, municipalities were very active in looking at it, dealing with it, checking it off, coming up with ideas. We did nothing on it.
And one of the challenges, particularly with Sunset Beach, is when all of these regional meetings were going on, and there were only a handful of them, there was turnover, I believe, in the planning staff for Sunset Beach. So the representation that normally might have been there was a little hard to track down.
All right, and that's a reason, certainly, but it's an excuse.
It's also an excuse, but and again, the regional nature of the plans just makes it so hard.
But looking what has to be done here, there's no way this is a multidiscipline job.
I'd like to finish, please, if I could. In the 2016 plan, we had a number of things that Sunset Beach, that was unique to Sunset Beach, although it was also representative in other towns. In that part of the mitigation plan, God bless you, and in that part of the mitigation plan for the 2021 update, it's exactly what we had in 2016. It's as if we just took those sheets from 16 and put them into 2021. And I think part of that could be because of staff turnover and things like that, that was really our only recourse to meet the deadlines, to be involved in the plan. And being involved in the plan is certainly important, so we didn't want to miss that opportunity. But I'd like to have, a future conversation with Chad about the need. It just seems like we've rubber stamped this, and you even alluded to that. Don't want to put words in your mouth. I also had made a comment at the last planning board meeting that I thought that, at least to some degree, our Environmental Resource Committee should be involved in this. Maybe even more so than the planning board. Now, obviously, the town council has to approve it, but I was surprised that the Environmental Resource Committee that we have, and it's a very good committee, and it's very active now. I would have thought that'd be something they'd want to jump all over, but I don't think they were invited to look at it. And they have other things on their plate too. But all right.
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation would be, and you're not alone. I mean, there's several, especially in this part of the state, where there's a lot of vulnerability to hazards. There's a lot of high capability from different towns, and even the counties have a lot higher capability. And they might be better served to have their own specific, New Hanover County or Brunswick County plan. My recommendation would be, there is other funding sources out there that that you could go and apply for to do plan, or just commit town funds or whatever, and do a more detailed Sunset Beach annex to this plan, or a floodplain management plan specific to the town or something like that. There is funding out there for it, and I'd be happy to help Chad track that down and maybe apply for that.
Well, we have taken advantage of some pretty key things like the storm shutters you see.
Yeah.
Well, you see the braces for them that with the fire department puts them on and off every hurricane. That's a valuable asset to this town, and we applied for it and got a grant that paid for that. So there are some good steps we've taken.
Right.
But we need to, I think somebody needs to be focused on this. It's important.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't disagree. I think, but the key for now is just ensuring that the town adopt the plan now. It was approved back in April, and we're one of the last communities to adopt. I don't want you guys to miss out on the potential to apply for any FEMA funding, and that's what this is tied to. So I would highly encourage, at least for now, let's move forward with adoption. And if we want to make any, if you want me to look at NFIP stats or anything like that, I can still do that. But adopting the plan through that resolution and getting that on up to the state and FEMA is pretty critical at this point.
Ethan, you mentioned funding. Can you touch base on the benefits of this just briefly?
Yeah, and this is specifically tied to federal, what they call hazard mitigation funding. And there's different programs: the Hazard Mitigation Assistance Program, Flood Mitigation Assistance Program. There's one called Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities. Millions and millions of dollars to implement the projects in these plans. And that's another thing to be aware of, and to try to be actively trying to go after that funding. But in order to remain eligible for that funding, participation and adoption of this plan is required. And that's every 5 years we go through this process.
Is there any cost associated with that? I guess the other side of the coin to be part of the plan.
No, this was funded by one of those mitigation grants. The state managed that funding. The state acquired the contractor, myself, and pretty much there was no cost at all to the town other than staff time.
So the cost to town is staff and actually acting on their issues or items.
And that I mean, honestly, that may be part of why some communities just kind of rubber stamp it. There is no there's no cost from the town required or from the counties required. So maybe it's not as a higher priority as it would be if there was funding associated with it. But yeah, that's the good news. There is no cost to the town.
Any other questions? Not finished. Okay. I think what we were asked to do today is to review the resolution in regard to adopting the Southeastern Regional Plan. Recommend that council do so. Is there any questions about the resolution per se? Do you have any? About 2/3 of the way down, I see, whereas the town of Sunset Beach has performed a comprehensive review and evaluation of each section of the previously approved hazard mitigation plan and has updated the plan as required. We're referring to Sunset Beach's plan in that paragraph, or are we referring?
That's referring likely to the previous regional plan from
Okay.
2016, which does what you talked about. It has a lot of stuff for Sunset Beach in it. That was carried into the 2021
Into the new plan, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But going back to what Tom is saying, I think he's making an important point. The town of Sunset Beach, and that to me means that the town staff has taken the responsibility to do this in concert with other committees like the planning board and subsequently now the town council. Because it's not saying who made that comprehensive review. I read everything on the 2016 and 2021 plan, and that was something. But I mean, I've got tabs all through here with questions, but this isn't the format for
Yeah,
those questions.
right.
It's not the time. So I don't know the point I'm really trying to make, except I don't want it being on the record that the planning board was the one that was tasked with going through and making a comprehensive review and evaluation of each section of the previous and the updated plan. Or that only the planning board.
So on this document, just one other question I had or comment. Item 3 is appointing Planning Director Chad to assure that the hazard mitigation plan is reviewed annually and every 5 years as specified. Should it specify your name, or should we say just
Director?
Planning Director? Don't need to decide that now.
Yeah,
but
we don't
just a
need to decide
question.
that now.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
I'm certainly going to take the responsibility
Yeah.
to make sure this is followed up. Honestly, I have questions moving forward. Again, this is going to be for me to talk to Mr. Slaughter here and make sure we're all right moving forward, and make sure, you know, COVID played a big role in this. I know some meetings were had right at the height of COVID, right at the beginning of it. Nobody knew what was going on and nobody was traveling. And, you know, just play a bigger role in the next time and actually look at our specific plan, and making sure it's updated and taking the necessary steps to make sure we're in the right place.
So I guess we need a motion to recommend that this be moved on to our council for their approval.
I so move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank y'all for having me. And
Thanks for
again,
the drive.
if you'll share any comments with Chad, we'll make sure. I mean, we can still make revisions to the plan, and
Okay.
appreciate
Great.
y'all's time.
Nathan, thank you for driving down.
Safe
Yeah.
travels.
Thank you.
Even though it's I-40, looks the same for all 100 miles.
Okay, next item under new business, staff report, text amendment request to modify Article 6 in regard to swimming pools.
Correct.
Chad?
Yes. So this application includes a modification to the Town of Sunset Beach Unified Development Ordinance regarding swimming pools being an allowable use with permitted with standards as a permitted with standards in the AF1 Agricultural Forestry Zoning District. This was publicly noticed in the paper. I think it was ran through one cycle. It's not required, but I did it because this is a zoning text change. The applicant, Charles Eddie Walters, who is attendance today, has submitted a complete application to the Town of Sunset Beach for the purpose of that swimming pools become permitted with standards, use PS in Article 6, Section 6.04, Table of Permitted Special Uses in the AF1 Zoning District. In addition to this, if you look on your second page, to making sure we don't have any confusion in the ordinance, we also I've worked with the COG also to update this for accessory structures and residential uses, because there is a statement, I think in chapter 2, 3, or 4, or article 2, 3, or 4 said that the most stringent use of the UDO will be looked at. So if you get to the point down to the nitty gritty and you look at swimming pools being allowed, but if you rumble your way through the ordinance where accessory structures, which this is, and then you find accessory structures are not allowable use, then you kind of get to some questions that could be picked up. So staff commentary: as the Unified Development Ordinance is currently written, swimming pools are not allowable use at all in the AF1 zoning district. Making this an allowable use, all parcels located in the AF1 zoning district would be allowed to install swimming pools in accordance with Section 6.04 and Section 7.14, swimming pools, hot tubs, as an accessory to the principal structure. The Town of Sunset Beach 2017 Land Use Plan discusses swimming pools specifically by swimming pools on the island. If you note down 24, swimming pools shall not be allowed in the BR1 zoning district. That is the only specific that the CAMA Land Use Plan or the Future Land Use Plan calls out swimming pools. The Future Land Use Map classifies this as an AF1 zoning district, or the AF1 zoning district as low density residential. List desired uses: single family residential as single family residential, and inappropriate uses that are listed as non-residential uses, multifamily residential uses, and two-family residential uses. Applicable zoning classifications for low density residential are AF1, MR1, MR2, MR2A, MH1, and MH2. Of the applicable uses associated with the Future Land Use Plan for low density residential, on the AF1 zoning district is the only zoning district not to allow swimming pools as a permitted use with standards or a special use with standards. You have this, you have the planning board consistency statement we can get to later. You also have the application. And I decided to include copies of the current zoning map and the future land use map. You have seen these from me before. If you look at I think I gave you bigger copies, but down Peakwood and Shiloh Road, it is the zoning sections on the bottom left-hand side there. And you'll also see that on the future land use map where you match those up, it will show you low density residential as a future land use classification. I do have Mr. Walters here today that can bring him to the podium, and if you have any direct questions to me or him, you can definitely do so.
Question for you, Chad,
Sure.
if I could.
Sure.
Chair, am I correct in assuming that the only AF1 is at Peakwood and Schuler?
Yes,
There's none other in the town, because I've looked and I can't find it except for there.
you're correct.
Because I think it's important to know
hard to
what
say.
other areas have been classified
Yes.
or zoned that way. I look at AF1 as being a low density, say benefit, but a feature, as is MR1 or lower density. Where swimming pools are allowed in MR1 and where swimming pools are considered under the definition of pervious impervious, they're considered to be pervious because they capture their water.
Correct.
So it's not a stormwater issue.
Correct. Now the apron around it, specifically if somebody wants to concrete it, yes.
Is impervious.
And I also want to make this note real quick that the minimum lot size in AF1 is an acre.
Right.
So just wanted to make that clear as
But
well.
patios would be allowed in AF1 anyway. So
Correct.
if somebody wanted to build a patio, which would be impervious,
Correct.
that would be allowed.
Yep.
But I would look at this as being a positive feature of AF1.
Yeah.
The one concern that I have, or the one I'm uncomfortable with the definition, with our present definition of swimming pool. I think it needs to be expanded because somebody could go in and build something other than what we contemplate as a swimming pool in AF1 or in any other location. So I'd like, as a, not to be tied to the approval of this or not, but I'd like to put it on our future agenda for the planning board,
Okay.
that we need to be more specific other than a swimming pool is any above ground or in ground pool suitable for swimming. That to me doesn't say anything.
Okay.
Could it be swimming for my dog? Could it be swimming for 50 people? Olympic,
Okay.
So I'd like to see that.
Okay.
I don't know if it will help, but there are standards to residential pools and commercial pools. And that main difference between a residential and a commercial is that all commercial pools have to be regulated by the county health department. So I don't know if that plays into that as well or helps.
Well, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, could be part of it.
One other
Finished. Thank you.
question, I guess, is, and again, I kind of agree. I guess it's a benefit to AF1, but sort of on the same tack. You added the other section, the accessory structure, but I also noticed that hot tubs are not permitted uses. Should have that been included at the same time, since I don't know a difference? I
Yeah.
guess a hot tub is a pool of water, you can't quite swim in it.
Yes. And
And then should privacy fences should have been, because it seems like the most common setup I've always seen is you got a pool and you got a hot tub and you got a fence. Does the box on the privacy fence residential need to be permitted use in AF1? It is in MR1. Need to be added to is he just going to come back with finding out later that he needs something done on the fence around it? Because the fence is required. It's the first item on whatever page this is, 6-7. Privacy fences, single family residence. It's permitted in MR1, but not in AF1. And hot tubs is, I think, on the page before, yes, on 6.6. It's permitted in MR1 and not in AF1. And I'm not sure why the two are separate. First of all, why is it swimming pool / hot tub? But do those boxes also need to be PS'd?
I would tend to agree, and what we can do.
I don't know. We can ask the gentleman.
We can
if
ask the gentleman.
If that's what his long-term intention is.
I would
hate
agree
to have him
with.
come back just to do it again.
I would agree with hot tubs, and that's an oversight on my part. Like I said, we looked at the accessory structure because the hot tub is considered an accessory structure. We can also look at privacy fences. What we can do is that if that's the wish of the planning board today, to make those permitted with standards under the AF1 for privacy fences, hot tubs, accessory structures, and swimming pools.
Well, it should be the same as MR1.
We can certainly make that recommendation to go to council for approval, and I can fix that before this public hearing is scheduled to go before council.
In his application, Eddie made mention of having been a part of the committee that created the UDO years ago. I was on that committee as well, and as Eddie points out, he suspects it was just an oversight, and I would have to agree with him.
Okay.
There's no logical reason. I don't remember any discussion saying, gee, we're not going to allow swimming pools in this area. We didn't do it. It took 10 years for it.
Isn't there already pools in this area?
How'd they get I can bring Eddie up to the podium.
How'd they get
Eddie, would you like to? Yeah.
Well, the swimming pool that's there now.
Gibby has a pool, right?
Excuse me?
Gibby has a pool. And
And
then the yellow house.
Let this get on the record, please. No, I'm not stopping you. I'm just wanted Eddie to speak into the mic.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Alan McCall, the first house as you enter the subdivision, has a swimming pool. And then I think the last house on the street, or the next to last house, has a pool. And the first house was built prior to the adoption of the UDO. So pools were allowed unquestionably, and then the UDO missed it. And hot tub, thank you for pointing that out, privacy fence. We were focused on one item, but there are multiple oversights in that adoption. So anything we could do, I just found it as a conflict with referencing back to the uses in MR2 or MR1 that aren't allowed in AF1, even though it says you can do the same thing.
But the yellow house, and I forget, that might be Jones, which is probably on Schuyler, has a pool. But anyway, never mind.
I'm not
Doesn't
sure.
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same way that the last house on the west end of the island has a pool. It was just done before the ordinance adoption was allowed and before
there's
BB1
a
didn't
couple
allow
that
swimming
can be
pools on the beach anymore. So,
Yeah, my approach was just to eliminate the conflict where
Right,
one
and
city
fix it
could and the other city
correctly.
couldn't. Yeah.
Right.
So, to be clear, are we going to then add on to this right here so it doesn't have to come back to us again?
correct. I'm comfortable with that. I mean, you're allowing the permitted with standards to hot tubs, swimming pools, accessory uses, which are all one and the same, and then allowing in the
Privacy fences.
privacy fences in the AF1. Correct.
Yeah, sounds good.
I agree. You want me to make a motion?
Thank
If
you.
that's the pleasure of the board,
Are
sure.
you,
Oh, any other questions or comments? If not, then I'd like to make a motion that the planning board hereby recommends approval of the proposed amendment with the addition of allowing as a permitted use privacy fences and hot tubs in AF1. We find that it's neither consistent nor inconsistent with the town's comprehensive land use plan because it is silent on location of swimming pools, except stated specifically for swimming pools not to be allowed use in BR1 zoning district. And find, secondly, that according to the land use plan, that in the classification of low-density residential application uses AF1 as the only zoning district to not have swimming pools as an allowable use.
BR1 does it also. I just didn't want that to go on the record because BR1, you're not allowed to have pools.
Well, that was
you know,
previously.
in a low. Okay, yeah.
It's referencing back to the
I'm
land
sorry.
use
Yes,
plan
you're right. Yeah,
of the low density residential applicable uses.
I don't read well. So, do we have a second? Then?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item. Under new business, staff report on Bird Watch Phase 1. Final plat for lots 1 through 13.
What I do?
All right, Mr. Chair, Riptide Builders applicant on behalf of Sunrise Corp Development is requesting the final plat approval for Phase 1 of Birdwatch. This final plat approval will grant permission to construct and operate lots 1 through 13 for single-family residential units in the Sea Trail community. Riptide Builders it has submitted for final plat Phase 1 subdivision for Birdwatch. Staff has reviewed and approved the final plat to be reviewed by the Planning Board. For final approval, attaches staff comments in review with the final plat. Prior to issuance of a zoning permit, the final plat must be approved by the Planning Board. Based on staff review, the proposed site plan is in accordance with the town's provisions of the town's UDO. All necessary information has been provided with the town as a prerequisite of the Planning Board's approval. Staff comments are attached. I wanted to also point out I did go through and do the final site inspection. The lots were marked, the trees were installed, and the sidewalk is completely poured for all those lots in that phase. I do understand that Phase 2, looking forward to, in the future, will be brought to you for the remaining lots. All the infrastructure is approved. I have the Mylar here with me. That is signed off by the county certifying those approvals for the infrastructure. The roads were already there, as Crooked Gully and Clubhouse already existed. So this was a pretty easy one to look at from a staff perspective. I do have the applicant, the surveyor, and the engineer here if you have any direct questions for them, and if you have any questions for staff as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the covenant we received today replaced the one that was originally sent, right?
Yeah, and I can bring up the applicant for that if you have any direct questions toward that.
Well, it looks like they fixed section Article 2, paragraph 3. Get to the right one here. D. Yeah. The roof drip line thing is now gone because that was not correct.
You're talking about the overhang?
Yeah. Because it doesn't match our definition of a setback. Because our setbacks include uncovered porches, steps, eaves, gutters. So looks like they've removed that on the new one. Article 2, paragraph 3, D is now different or gone. Okay. Correct?
Want to join us, Todd?
Yes, we made some
Who are
changes.
you?
Oh, Todd Rademacher, Riptide Builders. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
There were updates made to the draft declarations due to requests from most importantly, the state of North Carolina stormwater folks had new language, more specific language that they wanted incorporated with the adoption of the current stormwater application and permit. And then there was some technical review that was done by the attorney, similar to what Ron alluded to.
Mhm.
So those changes were made, and we got those to Chad as soon as possible.
I had a question on your information you provided, Chad. You said that no pedestrian crosswalks are proposed. On the preliminary plat, we did show a crosswalk below
Correct.
Lot 13 at the intersection of Crooked Gully Circle and Clubhouse. That has changed?
No, it is not. It will be installed, and Mr. Rademacher can speak to this. It's installed accordance with lots 1 through 13. As we get to 14 through 41, 90, those crosswalks will be installed at that point in time.
Can I ask a question, or can I make a statement regarding crosswalks so we can stay on topic? And this obviously is addressed to you, Todd. One of the things that I play golf a lot. One of the things that not enough though. One of the things I noticed here is and it was in the verbiage we talked about, and Tom already just referenced it, that no proposed pedestrian crosswalks was the staff answer to that requirement on E3. There's 2 cart paths that are involved in this phase.
Correct.
They sort of border it on the bird course. Right now, the sight distances are fairly unobstructed because there's no homes there. So you can see a golf cart coming in through the woods, particularly from the first green to the second green on the bird course.
Okay.
Now, there's going to be a house on either side of that. I think in the interest of public safety, because Crooked Gully is certainly not a minor road.
Sure.
There's an awful lot of folks that go through it, and it's a horseshoe, so it's got an awful lot of people on it. I would really like to see crosswalks at the streets, both next to Lot 1 and between lots 12 and 13. And I realize, correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, I don't know that we can require this, mandate this, but I would just hate to see a problem. On my street, and I live on the Oyster Bay Golf Course, there's a cart crossing 2 houses away from me. But my street probably doesn't have 10% of the traffic that Crooked Gully has. And I hear screeching brakes all the time, both from golf carts and from cars. And these are wooded areas that there's no houses obstructing them. Throwing that out.
It would be a recommendation to the applicant. That staff and planning board could require it, but if the applicant is willing to, he's more than welcome to do so.
Driving through, there's no speed humps on these roads, is there?
None.
There's no speed control humps.
There's none in
No,
Sunset
there's
Beach.
no speed bumps on any of the streets in Citro.
They're not allowed.
Yeah, emergency access.
Throwing that out. And I don't know that maybe it's unfair to make that request without giving you a chance to think about it. But I think the change in the personality of Crooked Gully due to these 13 homes is going to, it needs to be considered from a public safety standpoint.
Understood. We will take it into consideration. I think we're still fine with all the site triangle distances and stuff like that because the trees are set back and the homes are going to be set back far enough that we'll still meet site triangle. But I will take it back and discuss it, and we'll certainly consider anything for public safety. It's not an issue. We can consider it.
Golfers are typically writing their score down as they go across Crooked Gully.
Very true.
And it's harder to write an 8 than it is a 3.
Correct.
So.
Understood.
Hopefully it's a 3.
We have a,
11's on
there were some heritage trees on these 13 lots. Do we have a plan
Yeah.
for their replacement?
Yeah, Mr. Rodemacher sent me a text message. I think there was two. Email? Yeah, sorry, email. There was two.
There were 6 heritage trees that were on the area for lots 1 through 13, and we planted back 52 trees in a combination of willow oaks and crepe myrtles.
When you planted them back, those were trees that were already required in the, I don't want to call it streetscape. but there's a-
Streetscape.
We installed more trees than were required
Yeah.
by the minimum of the ordinance.
Okay.
I think I see you're at 25-foot centers now.
Correct. And technically with the willow oaks, we only needed to be on
50.
45 or 50.
45,
yeah.
I think it's 45 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. At some point, there was a thought of connectivity of this area with 904, but I think that plan was killed a while back, was it not?
Connectivity to 904.
Yeah, there was going to be some.
I think this one reaches 904. doesn't it? Was that
It was
Eastwood?
access from 904 and connectivity to Sunset Creek Parkway. Some of the notes from you a year ago. But
Sure.
I think what I remember is.
That wouldn't be part of this project. That's on the other side of Seaside Road.
Okay. Okay.
That'd be-
I didn't.
That might be a project.
That sounds like H&H.
I'm thinking of
The towns at
Elton
H.
Reserve
Or
or Eastwood Bluff, the connection down there, the dead end.
that would be into Angel's Trace.
Yeah.
Sunset Parkway is adjacent to the condos on the other side of Seaside Drive. So I'm
See that.
and this phase can't interconnect to anything
Yeah.
because it fully fronts on
Oh,
Crooked Gully. and
Crooked Gully.
Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Interfere with his golf.
In fact, all of Birdwatch, there's no interconnectivity potential.
I was not on the planning board at the time that the preliminary plan was preliminary plat was approved by planning board. And I know that sidewalks, or I believe that sidewalks were part of that preliminary plat data.
Yes.
I know that the sidewalks are in right now.
Mhm.
Just to make a comment, I believe they're 4 feet wide.
5 feet.
5 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, I wish they were 5 feet.
They are 5 feet.
They are 5
Thank
feet.
you.
Where's Granted?
Thank you.
5 feet is a much more usable width than 4 feet, for sure.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Finished.
Not then a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Are you making the motion to approve?
Yeah, I make a motion to
Second.
approve.
I
Sorry.
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all
Thank you.
very much.
Any public comments?
Mr. Benson, Mr. Chair, I have one more comment to make
Okay.
before we get into adjournment, and that is potentially what is something to think about and make a decision on the September meeting, and what is possibly coming to you at the September meeting. You're probably going to get, and I want to make this for the public's record and get that out there as well. September, you are probably going to get preliminary plat on sections 2D through 8 of Ocean Ridge Plantation and Jaguars Lair. That was supposed to be put on this agenda. However, it was tabled by the applicant at the last minute. H&H Homes, I'm meeting with Mr. Spencer today, and that was probably going to come to you. The first phase of that and the lift station will probably come to you on the first phase of that, and that is the villas at Seaside on Seaside Road going out of town on the right-hand side, same side as the post office.
Mhm.
The thing that needs
Is
to
that
be
both? There were 2 sections there.
Yeah, there
Oh, no,
were.
I'm sorry, I'm confusing that.
It'll be
Forget
phase one. They're going to phase it out. I think they're looking at doing maybe 20 lots. I don't remember the number off the top of my head to get that phase going. They've had some infrastructure delays because of all the rain we've got in the past few weeks. So wanted to make you aware of that. The other thing is because I will not be here in December to possibly go ahead and cancel the December meeting so we can give our developers a head notice to that. Moving it up would be very close to Thanksgiving, but also moving it back to January, maybe even scheduling 2 meetings in January would be appropriate. I just want to make sure that because we're getting in submittal dates for December Planning Board and TRC, just want to make sure we give our developers enough time to heads up on that as well.
Okay.
So you're saying that moving the meeting to the 16th of December is not, which would have been,
It would not be applicable because I would be out of the country
okay,
at that point.
gotcha.
18th of November.
And I will not be here to make sure that if advertisements are being made, or it would be heavily put on staff that's not used to doing planning board agenda packets to be able to put those together. So just something to think about, and probably need to make that decision at the September planning board meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Alrighty. We had no public comments, so motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.